Admiral Wilson stood on the bridge of the International Defense Station, watching the remains of the Imperial fleet scatter across space. The mighty armada that had arrived with such confidence was now running for its life. "Target their command ship," Wilson ordered. "Don't let Commander Marcus escape. He needs to survive to tell this story." Earth's combined forces moved with perfect coordination. Fighter ships herded the Imperial command vessel away from its escape route, while the converted civilian carriers surrounded it with clouds of nanobots. Inside his ship, Commander Marcus watched his escape routes disappear one by one. His mighty fleet was in ruins. The world breaker was destroyed. And now these primitives were hunting him personally. "My lord," his second-in-command reported, "the humans are sending a message." Wilson's voice came through clear on their command channel. "You came to our world expecting easy prey. Instead, you found humanity. Surrender now, or join your fleet in destruction." For the first time in his 10,000-year career, Marcus felt fear. "Power down all weapons," he ordered. "Transmit surrender signals." The final battle ended not with a bang, but with the Empire's proudest commander raising his hands in defeat. Earth's forces boarded the Imperial command ship, taking its crew prisoner. But they weren't interested in revenge. "Download their database," Dr. Cooper ordered her team. "Every bit of technology, every star chart, every piece of Imperial knowledge. It's time we took our place among the stars." In the Empire's Grand Council chamber, light years away, the ruling council watched the battle recordings in stunned silence. Their greatest fleet, their most experienced commander, their unstoppable world breaker, all defeated by a species they had considered primitive. How? The High Chancellor demanded. How did they defeat our quantum technologies? "They adapted," one council member replied, studying the reports. "They took our strengths and turned them into weaknesses. And those nanomechans, they designed them specifically to counter our most advanced materials." The council chamber erupted in fearful whispers as they watched the world breaker dissolve into space dust. A species that could do this, what else were they capable of? Back on Earth, Admiral Wilson addressed the United Nations. The great chamber was packed with leaders from every nation, all united in victory. "The Empire's invasion forced us to put aside our differences," he said. "In doing so, we discovered that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our weapons. It's our ability to stand together against any threat." Dr. Harris presented the technical analysis. "We've gained centuries of advancement from their captured ships. But more importantly, we've proven something to ourselves and to the galaxy. Humanity will never be an easy conquest." In deep space, the Imperial Council made its decision. A new marker appeared on their star charts, surrounding Earth's solar system. The text read, "System QRNTY, species too dangerous for conquest." On the prison ship carrying Commander Marcus to Earth, Captain Reed allowed the Imperial officer to watch as Earth grew larger in the viewport. "Why?" Marcus asked. "Why did you spare me?" "Because you're going to tell your Empire something important," Reed replied. "Tell them that Earth isn't interested in revenge or conquest. We just want to be left alone. But if anyone tries to invade us again." He let the threat hang in the air, gesturing to the clouds of nanobots still consuming Imperial wreckage. In the months that followed, humanity began its journey to the stars. The captured Imperial technology helped them build their first true starships. But they never forgot the lesson of their victory. Unity was their greatest weapon. And somewhere in the vast empire, young officers studied the Battle of Earth with a mix of fear and respect. They learned about the primitive planet that had done the impossible, the world that had destroyed the Empire's greatest fleet, the world their ships would never dare approach again. Earth had taken its place among the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same. Commander Marcus stood on his bridge, watching his fleet burn. His perfect formation was shattered. His ships were in chaos, but he still had one card left to play. He pressed his hand against the command console, activating the codes only he knew. "Deploy the World Breaker," he ordered. "Let them see the true power of the Empire." From the heart of his fleet, a massive ship emerged. It was bigger than all others, shaped like a giant spear aimed at Earth's heart. Its surface rippled with strange energies that hurt the eyes to look at. Admiral Wilson received the warning from Earth's sensors. "All forces, fall back," he commanded. "Clear the space around that ship." Earth's vessels retreated as the World Breaker charged its main weapon. The Empire had used this weapon only twice before, each time leaving behind a dead, broken planet. "They're targeting the North American continent," Dr. Cooper reported, her voice tense. "Energy readings are off the charts." The World Breaker's tip began to glow with a sickly green light. In his command ship, Marcus smiled coldly. "Perhaps the next species will learn from your example," he said to the image of Earth on his screen. But Admiral Wilson wasn't afraid. This was the moment they had been waiting for. "Dr. Harris," he called. "Initiate Project Phoenix." Deep beneath the Nevada desert, Dr. Robert Harris stood in a secret lab surrounded by humming machines. "Project Phoenix activating," he replied, releasing the swarm. From hidden silos across the globe, millions of tiny objects launched into space. Each one was smaller than a grain of rice, but together they formed a cloud that sparkled like silver dust in the sunlight. Commander Marcus saw them on his sensors. "What are these?" he demanded. "Some kind of primitive missile." The tiny objects were nanobots, the result of combining human eye with alien metals. As they reached the Imperial fleet, they began to multiply, using the very material of the enemy ships to make copies of themselves. "Impossible," Marcus shouted as reports flooded in. His ships were being eaten alive by microscopic machines that specifically targeted Imperial alloys, but ignored Earth metals completely. The World Breaker fired its planet-killing beam, but half its power systems had already been consumed by the nanobots. The weapon's blast went wide, missing Earth entirely and dissipating harmlessly in space. Dr. Harris watched his creation work through high-powered telescopes. "The nanobots are performing perfectly," he reported. "They're breaking down the Imperial ships at the molecular level." In orbit, Captain Reed coordinated the final attack. Earth's ships herded the disintegrating Imperial fleet into a tight cluster, trapping them in a cloud of hungry nanobots. "Your technology, your weapons, even your armor," Admiral Wilson transmitted to the Imperial fleet. "We studied it all, learned its weaknesses, and now we're using it against you." Commander Marcus watched in horror as his mighty World Breaker began to crumble. The nanobots ate through its hull like acid through paper, turning the Empire's greatest weapon into clouds of useless dust. "Full retreat," Marcus ordered, but it was too late. The nanobots had infected every Imperial ship. Some vessels literally fell apart as they tried to flee, their crews desperately launching escape pods. Dr. Cooper's sensors tracked the destruction. "The World Breaker's power core is destabilizing," she warned. "It's going to explode." "All Earth forces, clear the area," Wilson commanded. "Let them see the end of their invincible weapon." The World Breaker exploded in a massive flash of light that briefly outshone the sun. When the light faded, nothing remained of the Empire's greatest ship except scattered debris and clouds of nanobots hunting for more Imperial metal to consume. Admiral Wilson looked at his tactical display, watching the remaining Imperial ships try to flee. "Launch the final assault," he ordered. "It's time to end this." The battle for Earth had reached its final phase, and humanity was about to deliver its final blow to the Empire's pride. Operation Thunderbolt began at dawn. Across the globe, modified civilian ships rose into the sky. Cargo planes, passenger jets, and even cruise ships, all rebuilt with alien technology, lifted off in perfect formation. This was humanity's answer to the Empire's planet killers. "All carriers report ready," Captain Reed announced from his command ship. "Dr. Cooper's device is installed on all vessels." Admiral Wilson watched from Earth Defense Command as hundreds of blips appeared on his radar screen. "Begin Operation Thunderbolt," he ordered. "Show them what Earth can really do." The converted civilian fleet looked messy and unorganized, exactly as planned. Commander Marcus watched their approach with disdain. "They're sending cargo ships against us," he laughed. "Destroy them quickly. Then we can finish this pathetic world." But these weren't ordinary ships anymore. As the Imperial fleet opened fire, the Earth vessels split apart in ways no normal ship could. Each one had been rebuilt to house Dr. Cooper's latest weapon, the quantum virus. "Now," Admiral Wilson commanded. All at once, every Earth ship activated their special cargo. Waves of invisible energy pulsed outward, targeting the Empire's quantum communication networks. Even their backup systems weren't safe. In his command ship, Marcus watched in horror as his fleet's communications fell apart. "What is this?" he demanded. "Restore communications immediately." But it was too late. The quantum virus spread from ship to ship, corrupting their systems. Imperial vessels began firing at random, some even hitting their own ships. The perfect formation of the Empire's fleet dissolved into chaos. Dr. Cooper monitored the attack from her lab. "The virus is working," she reported. "Their quantum networks are falling like dominoes. They can't coordinate their attacks anymore." Captain Reed seized the moment. "All Earth fighters, engage," he ordered. "Hit them while they're confused." Earth's combined air forces struck hard and fast. Without their coordinated defenses, the Imperial ships were vulnerable. Russian bombers targeted their engine cores. American fighters destroyed their weapon systems. Chinese squadrons protected the civilian carriers. In orbit, the International Defense Station joined the attack. Its special cannons, designed using the alien officers' data, tore through the Imperial ship's armor like paper. Commander Marcus raged as his mighty fleet fell into disarray. "Launch everything," he screamed. "All weapons, all ships, burn their world to ash." But his orders couldn't get through. The quantum virus had infected all their communication systems. Instead of a coordinated assault, the Imperial ships attacked randomly, many of their shots missing Earth completely. "Sir," Reed called to Admiral Wilson, "their fleet is breaking apart. The virus is forcing their ships to operate independently. They've lost all formation control." Wilson nodded grimly. "This is what they get for relying too much on one type of technology. Now, launch Phase 2. Earth's smaller, more agile ships darted between the confused Imperial vessels. They planted special bombs, another gift from the crashed alien officers' data that attached to the enemy ships' hulls. Dr. Cooper watched the bombs activate. Detonation in 3, 2, 1. The bombs didn't explode. Instead, they created localized quantum fields that twisted the Imperial ship's own energy against them. Dozens of enemy vessels crumpled like tin cans. Commander Marcus watched helplessly as his fleet fell apart. "Impossible," he whispered. "We never lose. We cannot lose." But they were losing. Earth's defenders pressed their advantage, destroying ship after ship. The mighty Imperial fleet, which had never known defeat in 10,000 years, was being torn apart by cargo ships and converted passenger planes. Admiral Wilson allowed himself a small smile. "Send word to all Earth forces," he ordered. "Prepare for the final phase. It's time to show them our last surprise." The battle wasn't over yet. The Empire still had their ultimate weapon, the World Breaker. But for the first time in the battle, Earth wasn't just fighting back. They were winning. The Imperial fleet emerged from behind the moon like a swarm of metal locusts. Their ships blocked out the stars, their engines burning with strange purple fire. Commander Marcus stood on his bridge, watching Earth grow larger on his U-screens. "Begin the attack," he ordered. Standard conquest formation. 100 ships broke away from the main fleet, forming perfect attack lines. They had used this same strategy to conquer 57 other worlds. Earth would be no different. In Earth's orbit, Captain Reed watched the enemy approach. His hands were steady on his control panel, but his mouth felt dry. All defense platforms showing green, he reported to command. Quantum field at full power. Admiral Wilson's voice came through clear and calm. Wait for them to enter the kill zone. Let's show them what humanity can do. The first wave of Imperial ships crossed the invisible line marking Earth's outer defenses. Commander Marcus expected to see the humans' primitive weapons, missiles, perhaps, or simple energy weapons. Instead, his sensors detected a strange energy field spreading between Earth's new satellites. "What is this?" he demanded, but it was too late. The quantum defense grid activated. Space itself seemed to twist and bend as the field caught the Imperial ships. Their quantum communication systems, the key to their perfect formation flying, suddenly began working against them. By the Empire, Marcus's second-in-command shouted, "Their hulls are being torn apart." Like watches thrown into a blender, the Imperial ships began to break apart. Their own quantum systems amplified the effect, creating a cascade of destruction. 30 ships were destroyed in the first minute alone. On Earth, in the main control center, Dr. Cooper watched the data streams with fierce satisfaction. "The field is working better than we hoped," she reported. "Their quantum tech makes the effect even stronger." But the Empire hadn't conquered half the galaxy by giving up easily. Marcus quickly adapted his strategy. "Disable quantum communications," he ordered. "Switch to backup systems." The remaining ships in the first wave cut their quantum links, reverting to older, slower communication methods. They were less coordinated now, but they were still incredibly dangerous. "Second wave, begin attack pattern beta," Marcus commanded. "Target their defense platforms." Captain Reed saw the new threat forming. "They're adapting," he warned. Multiple ships targeting the defense grid. The sky lit up with energy weapons as the Imperial ships opened fire. Several defense platforms exploded, creating gaps in the quantum field. Earth's defenders had expected this. They hadn't put all their hopes in one defense. "Launch fighters," Admiral Wilson ordered. "All squadrons engage." From hidden bases around the world, Earth's combined air forces took to the sky. Fighter jets modified with reverse-engineered alien tech streaked upward, engaging the Imperial ships at close range where their heavy weapons were less effective. A Russian squadron leader scored the first kill, her modified missiles finding a weak spot in an Imperial ship's armor. Chinese and American fighters worked together, herding larger ships into the remaining quantum fields where they broke apart. Commander Marcus watched in growing frustration as his first attack force was decimated. 1/3 of his fleet was already lost or damaged. Nothing like this had happened in 10,000 years of Imperial conquest. "Prepare the planet killers," he ordered, his voice cold with rage. "If we cannot have this world, no one will." Back on Earth, Admiral Wilson recognized the change in the enemy's formation. "They're bringing up their heavy weapons," he warned the Defense Council. "The real battle is about to begin." The first wave was over. Earth had bloodied the Empire's nose, but everyone knew this was just the beginning. As the second wave of ships moved into position, humanity prepared for an even fiercer fight. The Empire was about to learn that conquering Earth wouldn't be like any of their previous victories. For the first time in human history, every nation on Earth worked as one. The United Nations building in New York buzzed with activity as world leaders gathered to form the Earth Defense Coalition. Old enemies sat side by side, planning humanity's survival. Admiral Wilson stood before the emergency session, his uniform crisp despite not having slept in 36 hours. "The data from the alien officer confirms our worst fears," he announced. "But it also gives us hope. Project Omega is no longer theoretical. We can adapt it using their technology." Screens around the room displayed images of massive satellite platforms being assembled in secret facilities. Engineers and scientists worked frantically, combining human innovation with reverse-engineered alien tech from past crashes. "Each platform carries a quantum disruption field," Dr. Cooper explained, pointing to the technical diagrams. The Empire's ships use quantum communications to coordinate their attacks. We can turn that advantage into a weakness. In orbit, Captain Thomas Reed led his team in deploying the first set of platforms. Their ships, disguised as ordinary communications satellites, moved carefully to avoid detection by the approaching Imperial fleet. Platform Alpha in position, Reed reported, watching his crew work with practiced efficiency. Beginning power-up sequence. The satellite's panels opened like metal flowers, revealing complex arrays of quantum technology. Similar platforms were being positioned around the globe, creating a web of defensive coverage. On the ground, military bases transformed into joint operations centers. Russian tanks rolled alongside American ones. Chinese fighters flew practice missions with European squadrons. Every soldier knew they weren't fighting for their country anymore. They were fighting for their species. The Empire expects us to be divided. General Maria Santos told her international strike force. They think we'll try to save our individual nations. Instead, we'll hit them as one united force. Commander Marcus watched Earth's activities with mild amusement. His sensors detected the increased movement of military forces, the deployment of primitive satellites. Let them make their preparations, he told his officers. It will make no difference. But in his private quarters, Marcus studied the reports more carefully. Something about Earth's response patterns seemed unusual. Most species either surrendered immediately or launched desperate, uncoordinated attacks. The humans were doing neither. Back on Earth, the first test of the quantum defense grid approached. Dr. Cooper stood in the main control room of Project Omega, surrounded by screens showing real-time data from the platforms. All platforms report ready, she announced. Quantum field synchronization at 98%, better than we hoped. Admiral Wilson nodded. Begin the test. In space, the platforms activated simultaneously. A web of invisible energy spread between them, creating a quantum disruption field that could tear apart the fabric of space itself. Reed watched from his command ship as the test target. A derelict satellite passed through the field. The old satellite shuddered, its metal frame distorting as quantum forces pulled it in different directions. Within seconds, it broke apart completely. Test successful, Reed reported, allowing himself a small smile. The field works exactly as designed. The next 24 hours saw the completion of Earth's defensive preparations. Underground bunkers were stocked, civilian populations moved to safer areas, and military forces positioned at strategic points around the globe. In Washington, London, Beijing, and other capitals, leaders prepared to address their nations. The truth could no longer be hidden. Humanity faced its greatest challenge. We stand together, the UN Secretary-General announced in a global broadcast, or we fall together. For the first time in our history, there are no borders, no separate nations. There is only humanity, united against those who would destroy us. As the Imperial fleet approached the moon's orbit, Earth waited. Their defenses were ready. Their forces were united. And in less than 12 hours, they would face the greatest military force the galaxy had ever seen. The battle for Earth was about to begin. The night sky over the Mojave Desert lit up like daylight. A burning spacecraft, trailing smoke and debris, cut through the atmosphere in a blazing arc. Desert patrol units watched in awe as the alien vessel crashed into the sandy ground, sending shockwaves for miles. Colonel Jack Stone arrived at the crash site within 30 minutes. His special response team had trained for this scenario, but the reality was far more intense than any drill. The ship's hull glowed with residual heat, its strange metal reflecting the spotlights from their vehicles. Life signs detected, a technician reported, holding up a scanner. One survivor, sir, and they're trying to get out. A section of the hull suddenly split open with a hiss of escaping gas. The soldiers raised their weapons, but Stone held up his hand. "Hold your fire," he ordered. "Let's see what they want." A tall figure stumbled out of the wreckage. The alien's skin was pale blue, marked with what looked like ceremonial scars. It wore a torn uniform bearing Imperial insignias. Blood of an unusual purple color dripped from several wounds. "Please," the alien spoke in perfect English, its translation device flickering. "I don't have much time." Stone approached cautiously. "We can get you medical help." The alien shook its head. "No time. I'm already dying. The Empire, they lie to us. To me. I had to warn you." At Earth Defense Command, Admiral Wilson watched the live feed from the crash site with growing concern. The alien pilot was clearly a high-ranking officer, based on their uniform markings. This was no accident. "The Empire doesn't want submission," the dying alien continued, each word clearly causing pain. "They harvest worlds, strip them of resources, take samples of species for their experiments. Earth is special. Your adaptability, your potential. That's why they sent the main fleet." The alien pulled out a data crystal from their suit. "Everything is here. Fleet movements, weapon specifications, communication codes. The Empire has never failed to conquer a world in 10,000 years. But they've also never faced a species like yours." In orbit, the International Defense Station detected a surge of activity from the approaching Imperial fleet. Captain Lee's sensors showed dozens of smaller ships breaking formation, accelerating toward Earth. "They're launching scout ships," Lee reported to command. "They must have detected their officer's crash." The dying alien grabbed Stone's arm with surprising strength. 3 days. You have 3 days before the main fleet arrives. They'll try to take your world intact, but if you resist too strongly." The alien coughed, purple blood staining their uniform. "They'll destroy everything rather than risk losing." Admiral Wilson immediately called an emergency meeting of the Defense Council. As military leaders from around the world gathered, technicians began analyzing the data crystal. "The good news," Dr. Anna Cooper announced, studying the initial results, "is that their technology isn't actually magic. It's advanced, yes, but it follows rules we can understand. More importantly, they have weaknesses we can exploit." The alien's breathing became more labored. "One last thing," they whispered to Stone. "The Empire, they're arrogant, overconfident. In all their years of conquest, they've never updated their basic tactics. Why change what's always worked? Use that. Use their pride against them." With those final words, the alien officer closed their eyes and became still. Stone ordered their body and ship transported to a secure facility for study. Every piece of information could make the difference in the coming battle. Back in space, Commander Marcus received word of the crashed scout ship. "Unfortunate," he noted coldly. "But no matter. Whatever warning they tried to give won't help. Begin the attack preparations ahead of schedule. We attack in 2 days, not 3. Earth's defenders worked around the clock, analyzing the alien data and preparing their defenses. The warning had given them a chance, but would it be enough? The next 48 hours would determine humanity's fate. And the clock was ticking. The Deep Space Radar Station in Antarctica picked up the signals first. At first, the operators thought it was a glitch. Hundreds of massive objects moving in perfect formation, entering the outer edges of the solar system. But within hours, every major observatory on Earth confirmed the same thing. They were not alone, and their visitors were coming in force. Admiral James Wilson stood at the center of Earth Defense Command, his weathered face illuminated by the massive screen showing the approaching fleet. 30 years in the military had not prepared him for this moment. The room around him buzzed with controlled panic as officers rushed between stations, sharing updates and preparing defense protocols. "How many?" he asked, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Over 300 capital ships, sir," Lieutenant Mary Taylor reported, her fingers dancing across her console. "Each one bigger than anything we've ever put in orbit. And those are just the ones we can track clearly." Wilson nodded, his mind already racing through options. Humanity had suspected they weren't alone in the universe, but they had hoped first contact would be peaceful. The formation of these ships told a different story. This was no diplomatic mission. On the other side of the solar system, Imperial Fleet Commander Marcus watched the small blue planet grow larger on his view screen. His gray, scaled skin reflected the soft light of his command center as he studied the tactical displays. In his 10,000 years of service to the Empire, he had conquered 57 civilizations. Earth would be 58. Primitive weapons detected, Commander, his second-in-command reported. Mostly chemical rockets and basic particle weapons. Nothing that could threaten even our smallest ships. Marcus flicked his tongue in amusement. As expected, these humans haven't even colonized their own solar system yet. Prepare the standard conquest formation. We'll give them one chance to surrender as protocol demands. Back on Earth, the emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council was in full swing. Representatives from every nation watched in stunned silence as Admiral Wilson presented the latest data. "Ladies and gentlemen," Wilson said, his voice echoing through the chamber, "we estimate we have less than 72 hours before they reach Earth orbit. Every simulation we've run suggests their technology is far beyond ours. But we have something they don't expect. We've been preparing for this day." The room erupted in murmurs as Wilson activated a secure holographic display. "Project Omega," he continued, "a joint defense initiative that's been in development for the past 15 years. We've had help, crashed alien tech, we've kept secret, breakthrough discoveries in quantum physics, and innovations in AI-driven combat systems." The Chinese president leaned forward. "You mean to tell us that while we've been arguing about border disputes and trade agreements, you've been building secret weapons?" "Not weapons, Madam President," Wilson corrected. "A fighting chance." In orbit, the International Defense Station activated its stealth systems. Captain Robert Lee watched his crew prep the prototype quantum sensors they'd spent years developing. They weren't supposed to be ready for another 18 months, but time had run out. "All stations report ready," his XO announced. Lee took a deep breath. "Begin full spectrum analysis of their fleet. I want to know every weakness, every blind spot, every flaw we can exploit." The Empire's advanced ships were now passing Jupiter, their massive engines leaving trails of exotic particles that Earth's new sensors could detect. Each ship was a city in space, carrying thousands of troops and enough firepower to level continents. Commander Marcus reviewed the final conquest plans with satisfaction. Earth would make an excellent addition to the Empire's holdings. The humans showed promise. Their rapid technological advancement in the past century had caught the Empire's attention. But like all young races, they needed to be taught their place in the galaxy. Little did he know, humanity had no intention of learning that lesson. In secret bunkers and hidden bases around the world, soldiers and scientists prepared for the fight of their lives. The next 72 hours would determine the fate of their species, and Earth wasn't planning to go quietly.